You're listening to Oh My Health, There Is Hope podcast.
When your heart is aching and your world is shaking, don't give up. No, don't give up.
Hello and welcome to Oh My Health, There Is Hope, the podcast. I'm your host, Jana Short, and today I'm here with a really unique, special guest, Mariah Macinnes. Mariah is the founder of Content Queen and is a passionate traveler, digital nomad, serial rambler, and big dreamer with a purpose to inform and educate. Mariah has been in the marketing industry for over 5 years and has a background in journalism and public relations. A go-getter with a huge energy and a passion for writing, Mariah has recently found more of a balanced lifestyle after being diagnosed with two tumors in her bowels and pancreas. This health scare sent her on a self-help awareness journey, which is always keen to talk about and to share on social media, along with her other content channels. Oh my goodness, Mariah, we just had the best talk. I wish we were recording right before everyone came, because what she does is what I am passionate about. And I try to help people with all the time, but I don't have that beauty with others' words, right? I mean, I help you tap into that, but I learned how to do that for myself. And that's what blew up my platform. But having said all of that, welcome to the show, Mariah.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
The first thing we ask all of our guests to do is share their story of hope. And during this whole episode, you are going to find out why that's so important. But I want Mariah to share her story of hope and what got her started on this journey.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for allowing me to share my journey on this platform. I love storytelling, and yes, we will talk about that. But I guess I started my business in 2019 with a dream to be a digital nomad. I had started a side hustle, traveled Europe, practicing being a digital nomad, quit my job, and then COVID happened. So I ended up staying in my job. 2020 came around and I was meant to set off on this massive trip, but instead I was, COVID happened, but I was also diagnosed with two tumors, which came as quite a shock to me. I was pretty healthy. I just had a few things that I just wanted to get answers on after a gallbladder operation. And I didn't think it was going to turn that dramatic. So this time last year, I was actually moving to Sydney from Melbourne, because I'm from Australia, if you can tell from my accent. And they're like, yeah, you have a tumor and we need to kind of do something about this. So I headed up to Sydney anyway and got connected with doctors here. In March this year, I had half of my pancreas removed, part of my bowel and stomach in a major operation to remove the neuroendocrine cancerous tumors from my body. And it just absolutely shocked me. I was meant to be traveling. I was meant to be in New York for Christmas, doing South America, Mexico, living my best life as a 26-year-old at the time. But instead spent my 27th birthday in a hospital bed, recovering from this huge operation, which is still having massive impact on my life and will probably always have massive impact. But from that, I thought, well, if I'm going to have organs removed and lose part of my body, then I have to tell people about this and I have to share this journey, because I think there's lots of people that don't share because they don't know what to say, or they don't think their story is that important because someone next to them is going through worse. And with, starting a TikTok, talking about it more on my Instagram, I just opened myself up to a different community of people that were like, I'm going through the same thing, or, oh my gosh, my mum had a Whipple's, or my mum had pancreatic cancer. Thank you so much, because it gives me hope. Seeing you traveling again, seeing you, up and about, working on your business, being an entrepreneur at the same time. And I can see the color in your face again. And that just gives me so much hope for my parents or me. And that's when I realized, like, this is bigger than me. And that's why I had to keep sharing. And sometimes there were different moments of my life I was sharing more about entrepreneurship and business. But at the end of the day, it's still part of what makes me, me. And this health journey just made me really realize how, life is so precious. And if we don't do something with this life or make it what we want, then, we just sit back and watch everyone else do what they want to do and live their dream, but we can actually be part of that. So yeah, it leads me to now. I'm still recovering. I'm still sharing my journey. I actually just got out of hospital last week for a bit of a scare. But that's what it's all about. And I don't now take it as, oh my gosh, poor me, which I still have poor me moments, and I'm sure we all do. But now it's like, okay, how can I take this and use it for better? Or how can I share this? And I'll quickly film something, even if I'm feeling too sick to do anything about it. I'll film something and then I'll deal with it later, or I'll note something down or journal. And it's insane how when you take something that happens in your life and your story, no matter what it is, and try and flip the script on it, it's just the opportunities that come out of that is just unbelievable. And for me, I just pinch myself every day that I've just been able to create these opportunities, like be part of your magazine and be able to share my story on this podcast. So it's crazy. And there's a lot in between in that journey. There's a lot of tears, and a lot of just personal growth, fear that comes up, all the things. But in my piece, I sort of shared, I guess, what got me through. And that was, those practices that we turn to, the meditation or the journaling or the reading of books or talking with others, connecting with people, and just trying to, when you're in those moments, seeing how you can get yourself out of it. Because at the end of the day, there's lots of people around to help us, but we have the power to be able to heal ourselves, to be able to just create our own story and our own journey. So that is my story in a nutshell. There is a lot to it, but that's a short version.
I love it. This is my favorite topic in the whole world, because I create global influencers. And when they come to me and they're like, I want to be an influencer, I want to be a global influencer, I want to be unique and I want to stand out. And then they start hiding behind making graphics and putting like these one-liner sales pitches in that everybody else is doing. That never works. Never. You know who opts in for those? Your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your best friend, people who really know you, not the people you're trying to reach, because you haven't really given them a reason to do that. But when you share your story, when you start sharing those little, I call them heartbeats, when you let loose a heartbeat of yours that's sometimes painful, sometimes scary, sometimes embarrassing, and put you that vulnerability out into the world, people respond to that. And nobody else has it but you. It's unique to you. So when you want to stand out as you and build your platform, your dynasty, whatever you want to call it, it's your story. So finding people like Mariah to learn how to tap into it, to use it. What does that look like for me? Oh my gosh, I'm telling you, that is what will set you apart from the mishmash of millions of people on social media trying to get attention to them. Don't you agree?
Yeah, 100%. And you only have to look at those really short form platforms like a TikTok or an Instagram Reels to see that the people that actually share their story are the people that and do something that and we all have something that makes us unique. And I had this really amazing conversation with an entrepreneur the other day about how we can bring two very similar, or two things that, are probably everyone can do, or you're not the best at in the world, and you bring it together to make something quite unique. And that actually becomes your story. So his example is he's a builder, but he has an architect building business. So he was a builder, and he just built and helped renovate houses. And he was one in however many thousand. But then he hired an architect, and then he became a design and building business. And now he's like one in whatever, and he could be the best at that. So it's like thinking about your story, thinking about one element and then bringing in another to make it your story. For me, it's of course, like I love storytelling and telling my story, but then I'm very strategy based in the marketing world because I've studied marketing and I do marketing. So I bring this together to make it quite different and unique. So it's not just, yes, you're telling your story, but you're telling your story for a purpose. You're telling your story on the right platforms. And I think, being able to share that story, but unpacking what that story is, because there's so many little things that make us who we are. And it's like, how can we bring this together to make it something super relatable? Doesn't mean it has to be extremely structured. Doesn't mean you have to write a book if you don't want to. I mean, I think we've all got a book in us, but it's just about getting those things down. And that's why journaling is one of my favorite things to do, because in these journals is so many stories that I can then pick out, and I don't have to sit at my computer and wonder, what can I tell the world? I've got it here. In my very vulnerable moments, I turn to my journal. Some of them, maybe I share, some of them, maybe I don't. And there's so much within me that I'm still learning to share. And I think it's just, if you struggle with storytelling, just start writing it down for you. And then you see what can come out of that. Because when you're just writing it from a place of, this is just for my eyes, then you might read it back in 12 months time, 6 months time, and read that and go, oh my gosh, I'm going to share this now. But you have to be ready for it. And with that comes a lot of fear. But when we understand fear is just knowing that you feel really uncomfortable, it's time to like step out of that comfort zone. And when you remember that it's not just about me, it's not just for me, it's not just, this is bigger than who I am, then, and it's not from a thing of like, oh, my story is like so amazing, but it is amazing, right? But it's not like an ego thing. It's just, people need to hear this. Because if we think, I went to this really incredible talk last night about domestic violence in women, and the survivors and the women that share their stories are the ones that are being advocates for change. And real life experience is hands down the most like precious thing. And that you become a subject matter expert when you have life experience, because you have lived it, right? And these women have lived this, so they know what change needs to happen. They've gone through the system. They know what didn't work and they know what does work now. And it's the same for you who has a story about whatever it is. It's lived experience. And yes, we could have someone that is a professional, and of course that's their job. But when someone hears from you and your real life experience, like my real life experience of being in hospital for an X amount of time, my real life experience of actually going through, I could read a book on how to recover from a Whipple's operation. It's still not like, it's just facts, right? But who knows what could happen to me? So I turn to the people that have been through it. Like, okay, this happened to you. This is something I need to look for. A doctor can tell me that, but I want to hear from the people that went through it, because they are the ones that felt that pain. They're the ones that went through that. So you need to understand that your life experience is so valuable to just so many people. And when you start just writing these life experiences down, then you can reflect. And then when you're ready, you can share. Because I think it's just, people need to hear the life experiences.
I think one of the most important things that you said was that you really do need to have focus on sharing that story. Otherwise, you're just rambling, right? You're just rambling. So when you start writing it down, you see those moments very clearly when you read it back. This is the message from this story. And you then can create it into that beautiful message that's really going to connect with people. Because sometimes when people tell me their stories, I nod off a little bit, because it's like they might start from birth to get to when they're 40. And that is part of the story, but there's so many little stories in that, right? So that's tons of content. Like you say, you're content queen. When you write things down like that and you see that, oh, there's a beautiful message there. There's a beautiful message there. And then you can start sharing those stories in a more focused, precise way, really hitting that heartbeat target to where you're sending it. So I love that you do this. It's one of my favorite things. I struggled with it. So for people who struggle with it, like I was ashamed to tell my story. It wasn't that I did anything wrong. I was sick. But for me, as a mom and a wife and an entrepreneur, being sick was weak. Like you had to still show. I couldn't tell my kids, I can't help you today, I'm sick. I couldn't like not show up for client meetings. It was hard. And so I didn't want to tell them. I showed up sick and acted like everything was fine. And when I had to tell my story, I was ashamed. I was ashamed of my body not being perfect, not working like it was supposed to, and breaking on me. Like that, if others saw that weakness, maybe they would think everything else was weak. But what I found was when I finally was brave enough, and it took me a couple of years to share my story, it literally was completely the opposite. It empowered me to help so many people. Like I just cannot even tell you how that feels when you know you tell a part of yourself that's sometimes embarrassing, sometimes painful. Like I know women who have been abused. They will say they feel shame for letting someone ever do that to them. And so they hide it out of being shameful. And when they are able to talk about it, and another woman who was scared and ashamed steps up and says, I need help, they feel that purpose has been filled in them with that story. So I'm telling you, it is so powerful when you do that. But what do you tell people who are stuck in that? I wouldn't even know. Like, who wants to hear my story? I'm so embarrassed. Like, nobody cares. People do. I'm telling you, people care.
Yeah, it's funny because one of my clients, when we first started working together, she said, I don't know how to share my story. I don't want to share my story. And I said, that's what I'm here to help you do. And I don't know if you know human design, but human design is essentially made up of, we all have our own human design. And each part, like there's it's almost like the chakra system, very similar. And we have in our throat, they call it throat. I can't remember the exact name, but it's your throat chakra. There's a gate, and my gate 8 is open. And gate 8 open means that I share stories, and I very openly share stories. Like I was that kid in show and tell, shared way too much information about their weekend. Like maybe my parents got drunk or something, and I'm in class telling everyone. The teachers
Mom
are
made
probably
dad
like,
sleep on the couch.
yeah, like note that down. And I've always been like that, but I understand that people aren't like that. My client, her gate 8 was closed. So she said, what do I do? And that's when, you know, getting that external accountability can be really helpful. So maybe it's you tell a friend your story, or you tell someone that's really close to you and saying like, hey, I'm thinking of someone you trust, because there are going to be people that be like, why would you tell that? There's some people that don't understand the world of online. Well, if I first told my parents, oh, I'm going to share, I mean, they knew me well enough by the time my health journey came up. So that was just no shock to them. But, you know, someone that maybe doesn't understand the world of social media, someone in the back, why would you do that? But finding a community, maybe you start online and you put yourself into a space of networking, and you tell it for yourself, and then you start telling it, you get comfortable with that story. So then you just start slowly telling people. And I guess it really does depend on the type of person you are. Some people, maybe they are super open and honest. They just like, they don't know how to tell it to an online space. So maybe they just need guidance on where to go and how to structure that. There's some other people that are just terrified to tell it, because I think, as you said, nobody cares about my story. But what you do is, even if you attach a lesson to that story, so maybe there was a lesson from that story and you share that lesson, and then you start slowly implementing that story to that lesson. Because some people have a story and they find a lesson for it, or some people have a lesson and they find a story for it. So even if you can find that part of that story that maybe isn't too invasive for you, maybe isn't too, you know, daunting, and you start slowly implementing, don't expect yourself to be like, I'm going to share, like, because there's still stories of mine that I have not shared yet. And I'm slowly working to it. And because they're those stories, exactly, people say, why would she tell that? Like, because, you know, or why weakness? Why would she let that happen to her? Or, oh my gosh, she's that person, so I'm not going to hire her. I'm not going to work with her because she's a liability. You know, if she's going to be in hospital every 5 minutes, I don't want her part of my business. You know, there's all these things that go on in your head. So it's all also, what I think is really valuable is understanding the limitation to telling that story. And then once you work that out, mine comes back to my self-worth. I'm the same. I'm like, it's a weakness. People will think. So once you understand why you don't want to tell it, then you can start working with it, not against it. So you say, okay, if it's a self-worth thing or a confidence thing, then I work on my confidence by slowly implementing part of my story, or slowly implementing a lesson that story is attached to. And then I can start just gauging what people, you know, want to hear. And I think it really does depend where you're at in your journey. If you're creating content at the moment, you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, or a subject matter expert, and you're already creating content, well, you've already got the first piece. You just need to start looking at the content you create and saying, where can I add stories? You might even start off with some hypothetical stories to see how people react. You might start with associating it with a story around someone, a personal figure or something that's happened. Once you get comfortable, then you start adding your own story, maybe the story of your clients or the transformations you've had. Once you start telling the story, then you're like, I need to share mine. Because when people are sharing their stories, we're always in the back of our mind, like, I can relate. I want to share mine. We're all like that. That's just how we are. That's how we become relatable to people. That's how we connect. So it's all about just sort of identifying what part of is holding you back, and then slowly starting to break that barrier, because it doesn't happen overnight. And I was the same. I didn't share a lot of my story I shared surface level stories, right? Like how I became into entrepreneurship, how I wanted to be a digital nomad, like those sorts of stories, which people still find interesting and relate to. And like, that's inspiring. But now like you add your actual story to it and it just adds that other layer, but you have to, get to that. And then if you're someone that doesn't create content at all and does not know where to start, pick just one platform that you really love, that you love showing up on, and just slowly just start in some capacity. Maybe it's maybe it's Instagram and you post to your feed. Maybe it's a reel that you create with like a little vlog of your life. Maybe it's TikTok and you do the same thing, but just like take slow steps and then you will find yourself getting more comfortable. It's like anything when we first started driving, we're like, I don't know how to drive. I have no idea. Now we just get in the car and sometimes we unfortunately don't remember how we got there because we're just like driving unconsciously. But it's all about just like taking those baby steps. And I would definitely recommend having someone keep you accountable regardless of where you're at. If you're creating, if you're not, share that story with someone and then get them to like, you need to share this. But you need to find a cheerleader. You have to have a cheerleader or a community that can cheer you on. And there's so many on the online platform. Like you'll never not find a community, Facebook group, and like someone on Instagram. Even they don't have to be someone that knows you physically, like has met you in person, because we all have cheerleaders that we've never even met in person, which I think is just incredible. So long story short, there's a lot in there, but I think it's just about finding your people and then identifying what is holding you back and how you can just slowly start bringing in, that breaking down that wall to start creating.
I love this so much. Like there are literally millions of accounts on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, linked everywhere, millions. And how do they come to life? How do they stand out? Because you putting that personality into it, little pieces of yourself, even if it's not like the deep, dark secrets yet, but adding those personalities. I call those pages when I get clients. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, I looked at your social media. It looks like no one lives there. It literally looks like standard posts, like everybody else's page. There's no personality. There's nothing unique about it. And the minute they start adding that in, it looks like someone's home. Like the lights are on, come on in. Like there's someone here, we're having a ball or we're getting healthy or whatever that message is. And that's how you do it, is by finding that, tapping into that part of you that is unlike anyone else. Everything you have to be successful, everything you already possess. It's right between those beautiful ears of yours. You pull it out of your heart and soul. You'll use whatever brain waves you're going to use to release it out. And when you do, I'm telling you, you stand out. You become so unique and people want more of it. So I like what you do is amazing to me. I have built my whole platform on people tapping in to not showing them how, but understanding that the important thing that will set you apart is your uniqueness. And don't be unauthentic, because what happens is people will see that they're smart. Oh, I just think I read this exact same thing on so-and-so's site. Or, hey, last week she said, just always show up as yourself, who you're unique. If you're having a bad day, don't smile and say, oh, everything's awesome. Say, gosh, I'm not having the best day today. I could really use some, cheers or, a couple smiles, whatever, to get me through the day. Because they want to know that you're being normal. You're human. Everybody has a bad day now and then, like you saying, sometimes you had bad days, like through your journey, because you're still on this. So I think you should just always be unique, always be honest. People are smart. They'll figure it out. And once they see that crack, that you're not completely being honest with them, I'm telling you what, it's a million times harder to build trust and rapport on social media than it is face-to-face in a regular business. So just keep showing up. Isn't it? It is, right?
So hard. It's so hard. It takes so much time. And that's why, like, when, someone wants to start creating content and they're like, why haven't I been an overnight success? And I was like, those people that started their accounts, how you don't know what they did to get to that number of followers. You don't know how, and there's so many things. Maybe they joined at a really good time when Instagram was very favorable with their algorithm, or that maybe just because it says they've only done 100 posts, maybe they deleted them. Like, you just don't know how long someone has taken, but it takes so much time to build up a following, a community. But you just know that, it's not about the vanity, it's about the impact that you have and you sharing your story authentically. Like I would rather show up as me every single day and have, a certain amount of followers that never move, but are always extremely loyal than like thousands and millions of followers that just don't know or connect with me. Because like, if you think, say you've got 1,000 followers, that's 1,000 people in a room. That's a lot of people. Like if you were to share, and even the reach that you get, say you reach 20% of your followers, it's still, if you were standing up in a room talking to that many people, you'd be like, oh my God, that's a lot of people. Because it's the world of social media, we don't think like that, but it takes a long time to build it up. So it's all about consistency and patience for sure.
Every single one of those people, every single one of the people building their social media started exactly at the same spot, 0. And then mom joined, dad joined, sisters, brothers, right? And so they all started the same place. They just stayed with it. They were very authentic, most of them, and they built it. And why do you care? Like you don't have to have, like we have to stop looking over the fence of what other people are doing and keep on track of what our message is, who we want to share with, and what that looks like. And again, like you said, if you're got 10 people following you, that's 10 people that you're responsible for showing up for giving a beautiful message to, whatever your platform is. When you start treating every single person like there's only one, things change. Like they really do change.
Agreed. 100% agree.
I want to know where everyone can find you.
Yes. Okay. Instagram. It's all the social platforms. So I'm on Instagram at Mariah_content queen. And that's my space where I share my story and I share the health journey, being an entrepreneur, creating content, telling stories. I'm also on TikTok, which is just my full name, Mariah Macinnes. And yeah, they're my main channels where I share my journey, but I also obviously have my business, which is contentqueenmariah.com. And yeah, we're a bunch of freelancers being digital nomads and helping people share their message and their story, help market their business, and just, create that content that has purpose, not just, we need to get mass amount of content out. We want to have impact. So that's what we do. And that's how people can find me.
I love it. Thank you so much for being on the show. Mariah's written for us. We love her in Best Holistic Life and been begging her to do more, but she is amazing. I strongly recommend that you reach out to her and find out how you can tap into your beautiful story and start stepping out and standing out, because you know what? Everyone's given this beautiful journey for a reason. And the minute you're able to start sharing it with people, it becomes really powerful.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been amazing.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Oh My Health, There Is Hope podcast. Make sure to visit Jana's website, bestholisticlife.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Google Play, or listen there, so you'll never miss an episode. While you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if you simply tell a friend about the show, that'll help too. Let's change the world together, one health expert at a time. Looking forward to seeing you next time.